Hey, Biff, what has more lives than cats?
Why are we
What?
still
Hi.
doing
What?
this?
Just
Why are we
why
still
are we
doing
still
this?
doing this?
Why?
Frogs,
Why?
because they croak every day.
Aren't you supposed to be
I
in
swear it's been
comedy?
comedy.
All right, here we go.
Do you hear an echo?
Do you have an echo?
Hey, Biff,
Yes.
Yes.
what do sea monkeys up? See, that echo is throwing me off. Hey, Biff,
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
what do sea monsters eat?
The sea
Are you
monkeys?
seeing monkeys?
Fish and chips. Hey, before I forget, look up the guy who invented sea monkeys. One of the greatest racists of all times. Great racist? Anyways, hello, everybody. Welcome to Carnival Personnel. It is Jacques.
I don't know
I
what I'm
don't know
doing
what I'm
here.
doing here.
This is Biff.
This is Biff. Hey, this is Joe. I thought I'd do something new. Like sometimes when Biff's not here, I pretend to be Biff. I
What?
figured,
What?
yeah. So I figured, hey, while Biff is here, why don't I still pretend to be Biff?
There you go.
There I go.
Oh,
I'm going to
Jen-
stop now, but if you want to repeat after me, that's fine.
No, I don't have that much energy.
Gentlemen, I say this with all honesty. It is great to see you guys. It really is. It's been a couple weeks, and I said to Joe the other day, or in the group text, that I almost had to do the episode this week for therapeutic reasons, like more therapeutic reasons than ever, because the last 2 weeks of my life has probably been two of the more insane weeks of my life, and at least 30 different people have texted me over like the last couple of weeks saying, hearing bits and pieces about what's going on, and they're like, what is going on? So I definitely want to go on record, but I first wanted to say it is great to see you guys. I barely talk to you, Biff, but I usually text with Joe whether he likes it or not 30 times a day.
Uh-huh.
You're like
And
when Pee Wee Herman would do happy birthday stuff to people, like, except that's every day's my birthday.
or at the bare minimum, I say the bare minimum, 2 calls a day you get from me, Joe, on a slow day.
Depends on how many market basket trips you have to make.
Right. Or going to a comedy show. I mean,
Right.
I'll talk. So it's been. We'll get into that in a bit, but I'm so glad to see you guys. So before we go into my insanity, how have you gentlemen been?
Just busy at work. But I mean, yeah, pretty much. Just chugging along. How are things with you, Joe?
Same, busy at work, watching a lot of, I know I'm skipping ahead to what we're watching, but that's all I do with my free time is I'm just like in YouTube and Plex rabbit holes. I'm living in the past. I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid.
You know what?
Whatever.
Let's skip ahead. What are you watching? Specifically, what rabbit holes have you fallen down?
If you've listened to the podcast, you know what my interests are. It's old video games and old game shows. That's all I've been doing is I've been
Yeah.
plowing through, Scrabble reruns.
Scrabble.
Yeah, on the Chuck Woolery hosted 1980s NBC daytime game show version of Scrabble.
I have a faint memory of that, but I don't think that's one of the ones I really watched with any frequency. But
Yeah,
I
it was
did,
on at a weird hour, like right before Price is Right, you know.
okay.
And like right, you'd have to be, and you were a working adult at that time.
Yeah.
So if you had a job, you weren't watching Scrabble unless you had like pneumonia. Yeah.
And you watching anything fun, Biff?
I started the MyGo arc of the Bang Dream series. Which
I had
of
a bang
course
dream the other day.
did you now?
Oh,
Which is my unhealthy obsession with Japanese female rock bands. But there's actually a whole set of franchises of bands that are based on this idea that like as basically extracurricular activities, kids in Japan do bands, and there's actually these school sanctioned clubs and stuff like that. But bottom line is that they have these band competitions and stuff like that. So all these bands, appear in these, anime series, but then they're also backed by actual bands of, real people. So essentially, there's this these people are simultaneously voice actors and musicians, and they do, so they do concerts and stuff like that. But
That's
then there's
awesome.
also this whole animated TV series, and what's weird, and there's no other way to describe it, is that they have a very distinct following, right? These are people who actually, I think their roots are on the watching the TV series side, and then so they follow that to the stage kind of a thing. So now it's like I don't know of another example of something like that, being an actual industry like that.
It's
I
like
mean,
if Josie and the Pussycats went on tour, kind of
right,
thing.
right, right. I mean, yeah. If the Carpentry family ever went on tour, maybe. But I mean, bottom
Well, I
line,
think they
but
did. Yeah.
it's a kind of like that it's kind of, I think, willfully intended this way, right? They kind of designed it this way.
Yeah, it's an anime series, but then the voice actor and musicians
Yeah,
go on tour
yeah,
and do their thing. That's
right.
that's pretty cool.
One of my favorite shows of all time, Metalocalypse. I don't know if he set out to be a touring musician, but the guy who created the show, Brendan Smalls, he's a pretty great,
Yeah,
speed metal guitarist.
yeah,
And for the show, for the music, he put together like an all-star band, like the Traveling Wilburys of speed metal musicians, and they started to tour. And the show's hasn't been in production. They just did 2 seasons, or 3 seasons. Show hasn't been in production for maybe 15 years, but I know Metalocalypse or Death Clock, the band
Death
Death
Clock,
Clock, is still a touring speed metal band, like of note, like doing the
yeah.
big festivals and stuff. So,
Actually, about 3 or 4 years ago, they toured with Baby Metal.
oh, that's awesome. And
Yeah,
and what I know about, the manga and the anime, things that my kids are into, it's how huge music plays a part in those shows.
yeah,
Like, and we've talked about it, like JoJo's Bizarre
Bizarre.
Adventure.
yeah,
The guy, like somebody who loves movies, they call him a cinephile. What do you call? So this guy's life is music, and all the
Audiophile.
audiophile maybe, but this guy, like all the powers
yeah,
that the people have are based on names of
yeah,
albums or songs.
yeah.
One of the guys, one of the big guys, big big, a main weapon or main move or what it's called on um, dirty deeds done dirt cheap, or maybe it's just done dirt cheap,
Yeah.
but it's like,
It's
so
funny in Japanese video, like in video games from the 90s and 80s, music played a bigger part in those productions as well. Like when Super Mario Brothers 3 came to the US and they translated the names of in Mario Brothers 3, all of the bosses are supposed to be the kids of King Bowser,
Right.
right? And in the US version, they're all right, King Koopa, the Bowser King Koopa, whatever you want to call him. But when they renamed all the like the Koopalings is what they were called.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were all named after, like, one was named Lemmy, one was named Ludwig, one was named
awesome.
Wendy-O. Like, so they were all, and then even in the Mega Man series, the video games from the 80s, it was called Rockman, in Japan. So music played a heavy influence
Yeah.
on those as well.
Well, I love the fact that, my oldest will be like cranking like Kendrick Lamar's like, first album. I think was it Section 80? Anyways, and then all of a sudden Love Train by the OJs. And I'll be like, what? And he goes, and it's because Love Train is one of the superpower names in JoJo. Or literally it will go from being a Bee Gees song to an Aerosmith song. It's all, that guy is all over the map, from a hardcore, from some punk song like a Dead Kennedy song to this.
Right.
And so for that reason, alone, I love the fact that they've gotten into these shows. That is pretty awesome.
And
Now,
Metalocalypse, you got me thinking like, these Adult Swim shows that I watched in the 2000s, like I think some of them are still on Max, but then they're I think they're also now like kind of floating around in other things. And I'm looking online to see where Metalocalypse is streaming, and it says Sling. Does that even exist still? Is this like an outdated
yeah,
link? But I wonder, can you watch Metalocalypse now? And like, because like all that music isn't licensed, and
what's fun is I mean, some of those shows, like the parody shows they did, like of Birdman and C Lab,
Harvey Birdman, attorney at law, and C Lab 2021.
Those were golden age. And we've talked about this. Archer, I think Archer has wrapped up. I think it went 11 seasons on FX.
It was a long, about like 10 years plus, right? Yeah.
But it started off, there was a show 2 years before Archer called Frisky Dingo, and it's all the same voice actors playing completely different characters, but almost to similar roles, but just in a different kind of way. It was like, it's this alien creature who came down here, and he was sent down here to destroy the planet. And his mother, and it's Sterling Archer, the guy who does Archer,
John Benjamin.
John Benjamin. Yeah, his mother, and Archer is his mother, and this, you know what I mean? It's really kind of like Blackadder used to do that. Like that was a big BBC thing. It's like the same cast, and at the end of every year.
At least that was the same lineage. But yeah, this is just like, no, same cast, different, characters all together, but same kind of roles.
Is that like Adam Sandler movies?
A little. Well, so the guy, the main guy, and Frisky Dingo, was kind of like an Iron Man / Batman character, where he had a superhero, thing, but was a complete a-hole. Like, just anyway. So those shows are fun. Biff, I assume you're not watching anything except the Stanley Cup, but
well, that's the funny thing about when you get to this stage of the playoffs, right? It's and this year is weirder. I think the days between games is longer. So like the last game was on Friday. The next game is tomorrow.
And is that because of the travel? Because these are for those of you not initiated, I don't believe whether the Champions League soccer in England, where they have that in-season other league going, where the 4 top teams from every European team play. I don't think there's 2 teams from Portugal to wherever that are further apart than Edmonton and Florida.
It's also like, just flights into Edmonton is just like, it's not a great place to have to go to, from logistics wise. I think what they're doing this year is that they responded to a lot of the challenges that I think journalists faced, getting to the sites, for travel. So I think what happened was that like some journalists missed, like they would miss them like a morning skates and stuff like that because they couldn't get to the next site on time. So
right.
Yeah, so it's a weird schedule where like Friday, like I've never seen a series where there was no guaranteed Saturday night hockey night in Canada, scheduled. Like there's gonna be there will be a game 5 now, and that'll be next week Saturday. But if there was a sweep, they were going to go through, entire, Stanley Cup Finals without a Saturday night hockey night in Canada, which just seems insane.
And as we're recording this, there's been 2 games. It's 1-1, and but they've played 3 games.
Well, I mean, in terms of the number of periods, definitely. I missed the very last period of the last game, but because I was in transit to FNH. But
game 1, Joe went into overtime. Game 2, I thought my boy Brett Marchand won the game with a shorthanded goal. Which would have made me be insufferable for a team I don't follow. But then with 18 seconds left to pull goalie, Edmonton tied.
Wait, did you actually watch the game?
Yeah, it's funny because we just got back to the hotel, and I'm scrolling, and I'm like, oh, you know what? Yeah. And it was like 5 minutes left in the third period, and so I got to see the tying goal, but then I just passed out. And then in the morning when I got up, I saw Brett Marchand did get the game-winning goal, but in second overtime.
Yeah, double overtime. Yeah.
So they played 3 overtime periods of hockey and with a trip. So yeah, I figured that you would have been watching, relentlessly.
Just a quick update on my previous comments. Adult Swim shows are plentiful on adultswim.com. Like there's like a wall of like literally almost every show I think literally almost every show that ever played on Adult Swim is available for in some way, shape, or form to watch on adultswim.com. So
that's Nickelodeon. Was it Nickelodeon?
No, it's a Cartoon Network.
Cartoon Network. I mean, but it's Viacom, right? Isn't it? Is it Viacom?
Turner? Yeah, I forget. Like it was a Turner.
Oh, it was a Turner.
Owned it.
Okay.
Yeah, which is now, I think those are on like WB. I think that's like it's somewhere in like the Warner Brothers Discovery universe.
So that's nothing but awesome news. Because Adventure Brothers, if you haven't, like, I implore anybody to watch season 1 Adventure Brothers. The later seasons were okay, but season 1 Adventure Brothers, don't watch Venture Brothers unless you're a pop culture aficionado, because it is so much better if you get every reference. I mean, it's a parody. It's a twisted parody of Johnny Quest.
Yep.
But everything is like watching JoJo. If you don't like music, then, JoJo's not your. Which, by the way, my oldest is 17, and he's already talking about his first tattoo, which he wants to get. Like, I guess there's a certain star that JoJo has, like the JoJo crest or emblem he wants to get. Like I think on his 18th birthday, and I'm like, I'm not talking out of him, but I'm like, okay, well, remember you got one canvas to work with, and but he's loved JoJo since he's 12. He's so happy to be reliving it now, because after 3-4 years of his brother telling him how stupid it is, his brother has now become like a JoJo disciple the last year, and they watch it together. So we'll see. But as far as my summer plans, I'm not sure when my summer plans officially start, but I know my summer has already been spoken for, Joe, because Resident Evil 9 will be coming out this summer.
Requiem?
No, not this summer.
It's not.
February 2026.
Oh, because Chris Berrigan sent me the link and said they just announced the launch trailer. I guess your summer's spoken for.
Yeah, he didn't watch it apparently.
Oh, well, that's good because I got shit to do.
Yeah, they launched it during Summer Game Fest, but it's coming out. I think it's like February 26th.
Okay, so I have months to plan around
27th,
not doing anything for 2 weeks.
It's a Resident Evil Requiem, which I don't know how you turn that into. I'm trying to see like how they turn that into like Roman numeral IX, because
like how the logo works out.
Yeah. But anyways, yep. So you got the rest of the year to sulk.
No,
you'll be but hey, you got something to hang on for.
No, dude, I'm actually fine because I know I got to go to LA for 2 weeks, and I don't know if I'm coming back here. But hey, before I move on to the crux, after 2 games, Biff, you can't possibly have a prediction,
No, I mean, yeah. Well, I did think that Florida was that team is just built for the playoffs. So I thought they were I thought they would be the team that wins, but it's just that, sometimes, great players, rise to the occasion. So we'll see. I mean, that's what happened last year. They came close, but
Yeah, and so I was reading about the game after. Wasn't there like 5 goals scored in the first period?
It was, the first period was, and the thing about it was that not only was there 5 goals scored, but like they were all like, it's not one of those, the goalies are civ goals, I mean, there are actually, a couple of them were like just bad defensive breakdowns, but still they were like, they were like great goals, so.
Yeah, no, my prediction now is Game 7 overtime by somebody. It's so close. It is so close. All right. So we'll talk about my last couple weeks. And so I will start back in, let's say, October, November. My brother-in-law kind of befriended, a while ago, a shut-in, an older guy who lives right near my parents, like just a few houses away.
Okay.
And would check on him about once a week, twice a week, every time he went over to my mom's house. And my mom and my sister, they live maybe 10, 15 minutes apart. So they're back and forth a lot. So the older guy a couple times didn't answer the door. My brother-in-law had to call in a wellness check. A couple times the guy was taken to the hospital. Older guy, 80, truly almost never left his house, to go to the store maybe once a week, once every couple weeks. And then I guess it was a bit of a hoarder situation where he was having trouble getting out of his house because he couldn't open the door. And my brother-in-law, ended up passing food, through the window to him for a bit. And then the last time he called in a wellness check, that guy did not make it. So they have to contact this guy's next of kin, which there is none except for one lady out in Carson City, California. So this woman and now my brother-in-law and sister are on the phone 3-4 times a day because he has to plan a funeral and make arrangements.
Right.
And has to sell this guy's house. I mean, this lady, makes him, her power of attorney, and this is back in December, because she doesn't want to deal with any of this. And she kept, so the first lawyer, right. So I told my sister and brother-in-law, it's like, hey, you should do X, Y, and Z. I confer it with our good friend, John, and John said, yeah, you're not completely stupid. That's pretty right, but also, have them ABC.
Right. Okay.
They listened to me and went out and got a different lawyer, and based on a recommendation from church, from a few people at church, says, this guy did our probate stuff. A couple weeks go by. I don't like what I'm hearing, and I say to my brother-in-law and sister, hey, I need you to send a very simple email that says this. Because he said a couple things that just didn't make sense. I said, maybe I'm not the smartest person on the planet, and if he writes back and says, this is why I want to do things this way, we can have a conversation.
Right.
If he says, why don't you come in and talk about it, it's because my worst fears is he's trying to screw you.
Yeah.
And that's a huge red flag because he knows he doesn't want to put it in writing. My getting involved stems from I know of somebody who went to jail a few years ago that Biff and I know, or Biff knows of that I know, because they were starting a company with an older person. 2 years later, that older woman's person sued this lady for elderly abuse, saying they took her mom's money, and they went to jail. And my fear is, look, something's going to come up. 2 years down the road, somebody's going to say this, and I don't want them getting screwed because they're trying to help out this old guy and now his sister.
Yeah.
So, one of the problems is the guy's will said everything goes to my sister if she outlives me. It was a very simple will. Everything I have goes to my sister, except 5% goes to charity A, 5% goes to charity B.
Okay.
Because he wasn't leaving money and he was leaving a percentage, the state now has a responsibility to make sure they get the maximum they possibly can.
Right.
And the lady kept telling the first lawyer and everybody, just give the house to him. I don't want it. I don't need it. Just give the house to him. Yeah. And she kept getting frustrated because she can't. She has to sell the house.
Right.
For the most she can.
I see.
So, my brother, I say, okay, get a meeting with that first lawyer. I'm going to go with you. And I just, every awful, mean thing that Mr. Taylor has done to me in the locker room on Friday night, or anybody else when he quote unquote tailors somebody, is what I did to this lawyer. And I was polite beyond belief. I was nice, but I was very, very direct. And the meeting went fine, except I did let him know, you know, I was very direct. And he kept saying, even in the meeting, yeah, she only wants to talk to you, pointing to my brother-in-law. And I said, yeah, you know, then you should really respect that. X, Y, and Z. We leave the office. 15 minutes later, we get a call from the old lady. He quit. And now my brother-in-law is freaking out because he goes, "Oh, what are you going to do?" I said, "We're going to find a lawyer, like I said we were going to." And he just saved you from having to fire him. So we find another lawyer, and it's been a nightmare because you can't get the house appraised. You have to have the house appraised by the state. You know, so the state has to come in. And no, because if Joe's selling his house and you're his buddy and you give an appraisal and you want to lowball it because the state has to come in. So now it's at the point where there's a buyer, but you guys will love this. The charities first have to sign off that they're okay with the sale, that they feel that they're getting their max contribution, and then the lawyer has to take those letters from the charity saying, we're okay with the sale, to the judge, and then the judge has to give this woman permission to sell the house. It's a nightmare because if she wanted to move into the house, great. If she wanted to let my brother-in-law move in the house and live there and forever, great, but she can't sell it, you know, without going through these laborious, expensive processes because the other lawyer, she knows what she's doing. She also knows that she bills $400 an hour. So when she drove the hour to the house and the hour home and the 15 minutes to meet him there and see the house in person cost $1,080, you know, for travel time, for, you know, dude, it's what those people cost.
Yeah.
So before the guy died, he had told my brother-in-law, it's like, hey, please go check on my sister after I pass. And because he was dealing with this woman so much on the phone, him and my sister come out and they visit this lady. They come out to Carson City about 2 months ago and about 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And it turns out this woman, her husband passed 15 years ago. She has no kids. And the only time she has left the house is a couple times a week to go visit her husband's grave a mile away and to go to Walmart and buy shit that never came out of the bags. She was a hoarder.
Oh my God.
And that her brother has been running her life, like was a power of attorney on all her accounts and just paying all her bills since her husband died for her.
Oh my God.
So the first day my sister and brother-in-law show up, she won't answer the door. It tells him to go away.
Yeah.
And they're like, you asked us to come out and visit. We're going to the hotel tonight, but we're coming back tomorrow. Yeah. She calls him an hour later and says, yeah, I'm sorry. By the way, there's a leak in my kitchen. Can you come check it out? And that's when they realize she hasn't had running water in 4 months, that the leak is a flood situation in her kitchen, that my sister could not physically go into the house because the stench is so bad. And when I say things pile to the ceiling, and that you have to turn sideways from the chair she sleeps on and like the back den area through the living room to the front door to get there. Call a plumber. The plumber shows up and says, I legally have to call the sheriff's department. Yeah. A human being can't live here. Yeah. They negotiated giving them 3 days to get her into assisted living. Okay. So, So now,
how does that work though? Like, can she afford assisted living? How is there like these sanctioned state run or whatever run assisted? How does that work? Work?
A couple things. Yeah. Phenomenal wealth.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Hence being able to buy everything in Walmart and then basically be a Walmart warehouse.
Warehouse. Okay.
So so a company offered, says we clean these things out.
Yeah.
It cost X amount plus, the cost of each dumpster.
Right.
And if we find and sell anything, we'll give you
Yeah.
30%.
Okay.
She insists there's very personal stuff in there.
Yeah.
She begs him to clean it.
Right.
So anyways, my brother-in-law and I come out to Carson City about a month ago.
Okay.
For a few days, and it gets
Yeah.
extended. So we're out here almost a week and a half. This is before we start doing the cleaning. This is just to help get her settled in, and now he has to become power of attorney on all her accounts because the brother's not around anymore.
Right.
And this is where the nightmare for me starts because, again, I come out because I want to see what he is getting into.
Right. Okay.
Luckily, my wife's job is very forgiving about changing her schedule to be able to get the boys to school on the time.
Right.
My mom is down the street to help. I think I had to move 2 non-big shows. I think I missed 1 show.
Okay.
When I was, coming out. And again, I didn't want my brother-in-law or sister to get screwed over, somehow down the road. So I come out, and it is beyond words what it is, and it is. It's great. It's gross stuff. I mean, she do the math on not having running water and not leaving the house.
Right.
And some bags are filled with those clothes, but I'm talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. She would buy a tote bag, buy a new pair of shoes, a couple pairs of pants, a shirt, duct tape, scotch tape, a bag of markers, some odd little knickknack, and it would be that would be inside the Walmart bag, or inside the tote bag she bought, in the Walmart bag unopened on top of the pile or on bottom of the pile. And so we come out 2 weeks ago. And he has to go bank to bank to bank and drive with this lady. And, he has a very thick accent.
Right.
He's brown. We are in Whitesville, and,
Whitesville.
Carson City is a half hour outside of Reno.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I will sidebar to say it's one of those places, and again, Biff, with your work travel, it's one of those places that you can't get to easily. There's no direct flight to Reno. You have 1, 2 stops from Reno to get to Reno.
Yeah, you probably have to go through Phoenix or something like that. Yeah.
Right. Or you fly south to DC.
Yeah.
Then over to Phoenix, and then up to Reno, and then a half-hour drive. So what we've opted to do is the direct flight. Well, the first time my sister booked the flight, it was to San Francisco, and it was about a 5.5-hour drive because the first hour and a half, about 6-hour drive. The first hour and a half was 5 miles of San Francisco traffic at about 4:30, And as I was driving, I asked my sister, who is the smart one of the family, who does have a master's degree from UConn, we just drove through Sacramento 2 hours after leaving San Francisco. Is your globe different than mine? So this time we flew into Sacramento, saw our dear friend, our brother from FNH, the blind squirrel.
Yeah.
I want to have him on. His life is pickleball, and it's great. He figured it out. Retired a few years early, plays pickleball 3 hours a day, goes to the gym, and then texts on the FNH chain. That's his life. He is living his best life. Anyways, so I come out here a few weeks ago. I'm going to all the banks. I have the power of attorney. Well, he has it, but I'm helping him with all the paperwork and every roadblock that you can throw up. And look, I get it. They have to have us leave the room and talk to this woman herself.
Yeah.
I get it because we had to do this with my mother-in-law several years ago. I don't know if you had to do that with your mom, Biff, when you put all her stuff together. Because she was younger probably when you put all the stuff together for her, because you were in this role for your mom. Joe's in this role for his.
I was not. It was my older brother, but, she wasn't, she never got to a point where we had to, go through all of that. So.
Okay. So, so she's lucid enough, and they're like, okay. So it's over the next 2 weeks. It's problem. It's problem. It's problem.
Yeah.
We have a lawyer out here who's 78,
Mm.
going on 40.
Okay.
She's a spitfire.
Okay.
I don't know if I love a person more. She is, and she's retired. She's passed the bar in New York. She was a lawyer there for a long time. In Virginia, she does paralegal work technically here, but she helps senior citizens who don't have
good for her.
people
Yeah.
to help.
Yeah.
You have to fight her, and I mean fist fight her, to pay her. You know, we have one lawyer on the other side of the country who I've gone through her bill. And the lawyer back, you know, from Lexington, who's helping with the other house there, she has billed a great deal for 2 months trying to get the insurance rider on the house. My brother-in-law got frustrated and got it himself in 24 hours, to which she wrote saying, "Oh my God, this is amazing. How did you get this? Blah, blah, blah." And then I look at the bill. Yeah, she's billed about $800 trying to get the insurance rider. This woman out here, he has to tackle her, and I have to stuff cash, you know, in her shoe and run away so we can pay her. But in between his second trip, my first trip, and this trip, she put together a trust, because at this point, it was not going well in assisted living. She wasn't leaving her room. She wasn't eating.
Right.
And so, and I'm going to say as loud as I can to all of my friends, I've texted so many people. I text Joe, and I know he has it all under. I know my friend John in Austin has his shit taken care of with his dad. But I'm begging people, fucking get a trust.
Yeah.
Just do things right now, because the longer you wait, and it's very hard conversation to have with a loved one. But at the end of the day, my brother-in-law is finding out the hard way that banks, and especially insurance companies and brokerage firms, their one and only goal is to not give you the money under any fucking circumstances, period, the end. And when things go to probate, which most of this woman's assets will, it will be a 2-3 year slog where you'll be dealing with the lawyer in Lexington, not the lawyer in Reno, who will take 90% of the assets. So fast forward, this woman says, you have to do the house. And also the assisted living place is calling him. He's the power of attorney of finance. My sister is the power of attorney for medical things. And they're calling saying, we sent her to the hospital. They're going to keep her a few days. They're going to send her back. But you have to come do something. Well, the first time we came out here a few weeks ago, we took her out every day for 5-6 hours. I will tell you, I've driven across this country 4 or 5 times. Joe has done it with me once. I've got to travel through Europe. Some of the drives from Sacramento here, I don't know if I've done a more beautiful drive.
Oh,
The drive every day that we do from Carson City to Reno is nothing but expansive openness with hundreds of horses on one side and streams and lakes, and on the other side just hundreds of heads of cattle and baby cattle just walking in these open, expansive fields. The bigger mountains are still snow-capped, never any traffic. Like the ride from Sacramento, you're coming over these snow-capped mountains, so it's 90 degrees when I left the Blind Squirrel's place in Sacramento, and it was 90 degrees when we got to Carson, and it snowed for about an hour of the trip going up over those mountains. But it was gorgeous. So many times I pulled over because you see this cabin on a river in the middle of nowhere, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I will say the drive here. So we would take this woman and just drive around Lake Tahoe for an hour, and she would tell us these late stories. We would find this place where you could get out, and my brother-in-law would push her for an hour around the lake in the wheelchair, and she was great, and she was lucid. She was unaware that she lives in a world where if she tells me how much she loves Frank Sinatra, and her friends made fun of her because she was 12 when the Beatles came out, but she was a Frank Sinatra fan, that meant the rest of the time she was in a car with me, I could stream nothing but Frank Sinatra songs. She didn't know that world existed. the love of her life, the only thing that really matters to her is the Buffalo Bills quarterback, Josh Allen. And one of the calming mechanisms we've used with her the last few weeks is I just hand her my phone with Josh Allen highlights on it. She did not know there was a world in which you can watch every touchdown pass from the 2023 season of Josh Allen. Those are the only things. But this trip out here, she's completely different. Yeah. And thank goodness that the lawyer had taken her back to a lot of the same financial institutions the week after we left, the week before we came back with the trust paperwork. So we get here, and right away, it's not good. She's lost 30 pounds in 2 months. Ugh. Her calves and feet are so swollen she can't put shoes on, because she is so dehydrated because the assisted living place cannot make her eat.
Oh, jeez.
Turns out, can't make her shower either. So when we got you're walking down the hallway and it now smells like her house. Yeah. And so we have to, and again, she has to sign this paperwork, on the way to the hospital. And I will tell you, the Wells Fargo gals were great. They came out to the car.
Okay.
I went inside for an hour and did the paperwork with them because I have the dossier with every bit of information you can imagine. And then they came out and it was an hour of signing stuff, at the car. And she knows what she's doing. She also knows she doesn't want to eat because she doesn't want to be alive, and because she wants to go back to her house, which she can't. 2 months ago, she was driving, which we'll talk about her car in a bit. She was driving and she can't drive anymore. She can't live in her house. She's in this strange place, and she's the same thing. I didn't know this till the other day that all the furniture in the assisted living place my brother-in-law had to buy for her. It's renting an apartment. It's an empty room.
Right.
So he had to buy her a new recliner and a new bed, which she used to put her stuff on. And she never slept on this brand new, nice bed. All the furniture there. Because for years she's sleeping in a recliner. That's how she can sleep. She can only sleep sitting up in a recliner. So we take her to the hospital and they right away put fluids in her. The next day she's better. She has glow to her skin. But now the problem of keeping the IV in her.
Oh, yeah.
And now the very painful problem of this woman doesn't have any veins left. And so it's a painful process to now put the IV back in her.
Yeah.
And again, the hospital cannot legally force her to eat food. Right. So we're here and we have to leave, but she's in the hospital. It's not going well. And so we have to extend for another week. Plus, we're now cleaning her house. And we got, after the first few days, we got to the point where we had to hire a crew to kind of help with some of the stuff. As of the dropping of this podcast, the house is 85% empty, except for it's like 15% of the trash is there, mostly on the floor, smaller stuff. But the big furniture is still there, but it's so insane when you're cleaning a place and you find a dining room table. When you find, it took 2 days cleaning the back bedroom to find a queen size bed. Like you can't even see these things for the first 2 or 3 days. You couldn't get to the windows in the back of the rooms, until a couple days ago. Like that's the level of it. And so it's so much better now, but still when we get to the house, we park the car around the corner so that the smell doesn't get it. And we change in the garage.
Right.
You know what I mean? Strip down, change in the garage, and then the clothes that we only wear to and from, we change when we get to the hotel.
You had to buy burner clothes.
But back to her.
Oh my God.
We had to buy burner clothes. Thank you. So now every single day, my life has become going to the FedEx office place where they have the computers. You put your credit card in, you pay per minute. because we'll deal with somebody like USAA. You have to fill out their 8-page power of attorney first,
Right.
and then attach your power of attorney, your trust paperwork, all the other stuff. But first you have to print out their thing, and you would fax it in, and then they'd be like, oh, it got rejected 2-3 days later. And they won't even tell you if they got the fax.
Yeah.
They won't even talk to my brother-in-law to say, yes, we got the power of attorney paperwork. They will only talk to her. And it's like, the worst ones are Bank of America, USAA, and the brokerage people at Wells Fargo. The people with her 5 bank accounts, fine. But the brokerage guy, as of 2 days ago, was saying, no, she has to come into my office to sign paperwork. I'm like, you can't DocuSign. Our lawyer can't pick it up from your office and bring it here. We can't pay your notary to drive it the half hour here to do it. And luckily, now we got the letter as of Friday that she's incompetent to make decisions. Now people have to talk to my brother-in-law, who've been refusing to and reject. Like you would send them
Right.
a 17-page fax, and they would say, well, there was this handwritten correction here, and we need it re-notarized with the date of the re-notification so that we know the handwritten correction. And when I say the correction was, the old lady who signed the paperwork signed it like, May 28th, crossed it out because it was May 26th.
Yep.
Oh, Jesus.
And 70 and that fax specifically, because it had the 2 different faxes had to go, and every day we're going through her house, we find paperwork, and it took a month and a half for her mail to start going to my brother's house, back in Boston.
Right.
Because she's never had an email account. She's never had.
Right.
She has a flip phone, and you
Does it have
scroll back.
candy in
The
it?
only call she's made, dude. You're not far. You. Yeah, I'm going down the Simpson rabbit hole in my head. But no, so seriously, she gets 30 pieces of mail a day. And right away, the assisted living place is like, she can't get 30 pieces of mail here. We don't have the bandwidth to do this. Plus, she can't have it all in her room. We can't have a hoarder situation. But it's taken 2 months, or a month and a half to get the mail. So every day we've been out here, my sister comes home from lunch and takes screen grabs, and she will send it, because all these accounts we don't know about. And then we found out that BSAA is also her home and car insurance. So that 17-page fax, well, that went to USAA Financial. We had to send the same 17-page fax to USAA Insurance. $77 just to fax it. And he's at the hospital with her. I'm on the phone with the people for the 10 minutes before you get to the part that she has to verify who she is. And then I call him. This has been every single day. So about 4 or 5 times a day, you have to call. I'm at the place for hours. So we get up, we get to the house at 7 because it's 90, 95 degrees every day we've been here. And we get 5 hours of work in. Friends listening to this podcast, you've all seen me. Does it look like I do 5 hours of manual labor inside a calendar year? I mean, I have to put on sweatpants, a sweatshirt, so I can have my phone in the pouch, so that I put my hazmat suit over it inside this place.
Oh my God.
I mean, and you have to stop every 15, 20 minutes to take off the latex gloves, to wipe your face down, to go back in. I have, and I can honestly say this, I have physically worked more in the last 2 weeks than the last 20 years. Not including workouts, which again, friends of the podcast who have seen me.
Yeah.
Hey, you look like a health nut. Do you work out?
And then we come home, we shower, we both go to the hospital, we visit with her, and then I go to my office, and he stays there, and we do this for 3 or 4 hours. And then almost every day, we have to drive, and it is the probably the second highlight of the trip is every day we have to make that drive to Reno to the lawyers. Who the lawyer forgot to stamp one thing, which has caused nightmares. And I call her and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I have to drive there. Now, this lady is private. So every meeting we have is at a McDonald's near her house. Yeah. She'll meet us at a parking lot to sign something, give us paperwork. So she calls and says, and we don't hear from her for an hour,
right? For
2 hours, for 4 hours. Very unusual. Right. She calls at 6, 7 o'clock at night and says, I am so sorry. I can meet you. My friend is picking me up. I can meet you at this gas station here in Reno. My friend's taking me to my hospital. I fell and broke my knee.
Oh, no.
She literally on the way to the hospital meets us. She has knee surgery the next day. She has to get us some other paperwork. And she's like, okay, come to my house, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I thought, we respect your privacy. If we want to wait for one of your friends, she's like, fuck it. Like, we're family now. Just come on over. And we get there and she's a trooper and we have to help her, move her leg to get it up on the thing. And it's like, delicate. Honestly, it was major surgery. She cracked her kneecap. And it's like, and she's
my God, that's 78, right? That's freaking nightmare.
Oh, and then she apologizes and she's talking to us and I don't say anything. My brother-in-law obviously doesn't say anything, but she about halfway through says, I apologize for talking funny. My teeth are over there.
Have I said dibs yet?
Well, I will tell you, the first time I met her is on the way. We flew out of Reno the first time, and it was exactly what you said, Biff. We had a flight to Phoenix, and our Reno flight left so late, but luckily they held the Phoenix flight because it was like half the Reno plane was going to Boston.
Right.
And I walked like gate B11 to B8. I walked down one jet onto the other, when we flew back. But we met her at a McDonald's. Her hand was in a splint. We had this 2-hour meeting with her. And then I said, hey, I have to ask. And I point to her hand. I said, MMA? And she looked at her hand and she goes, no, I tell people I saw a cute guy across a parking lot and while chasing him, I tripped, So she is just a hoot, but yeah. So every day we have to go to this woman's house and she has to sign different paperwork as she is nursing a broken leg at 78, she's great. She's absolutely great. Like I said, that drive, she is the true highlight. That drive is the third highlight. I'll get to the second big highlight in a minute. So that's where we are now. So we have a meeting with the hospital. She won't talk to anybody in the hospital unless we walk in the room. And then she really likes me. She really does. She lights up like a Christmas tree.
I'm sorry, Joe.
No, this isn't the lawyer. He called dibs on the lawyer.
The lawyer. I'm sorry.
He has the lawyer. So the lady we're taking care of, she will only talk, but he can't even get her the last week to take a sip of ginger ale. She won't even do that for him, and she'll yell at him. So I'm like, let them be the bad guy. You just keep coming here and being the person who talks to. She's had a sad, hard life, she had a sad, hard life growing up and she, seemed to have a nice marriage, but no kids and she's a cantankerous old woman. Like the neighbors do not like her,
At the new facility.
No. And her neighborhood.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, look, no one called in a wellness check on her in 15 years. You know what I mean? Right. I mean,
okay,
it is what it is. So as of Thursday, they say, hey, we have two options: a very invasive surgery that puts a feeding tube up her nose.
Oh my God!
Which we know she will pull out and do more damage, pulling it out, or it's time for hospice and just stop. Because
right, yeah.
Because when we will come to the hospital, we can get her in the wheelchair and we can drive her, walk her down the hall. There's a really nice art installation, or there's a private room where you're looking at the mountains, like a really big room, like, but it's always just the three of us sitting there. And that's when they'll clean her bed. And the last time they did that, she takes, I think it's 4 different pills a day she takes, and they found 19 pills in her bed. So and they're like, we're not even we'll offer the medicine, but we're not going to pretend we'll do this. So Friday we had the meeting with hospice, and I will tell you, the guys, the 2 gents we met, very nice, very, very caring. Their jaws were on the ground when my brother-in-law proceeded to tell them the level of care my mother-in-law got in Massachusetts. Like the dignity and the care that my mother-in-law got. Say what you will, Massachusetts, we have the best schools in the country. We feed kids in our schools. And when you get sick and you're old, and Nevada, if you have a lot of money, you're okay. But what the state of Nevada does for you is they paste you with some meat paste, a little garnishes, and they push you to the edge of the mountains and let nature take its course. Luckily, she is in category A, kind of, where she has resources. But I will say, as of now, it's all Medicaid on the federal government. So the programs that are being gutted have not been gutted to the point yet, and these guys flat out said, in a month, people here are fucked. She's like, between what she has, she has an income of $6,000 a month between Social Security, her husband's pension from the military because he was career Navy. I would have loved to met her dad. Our friend Ross would have, because it turned out he got a degree from the University of California, David, went to officer school, and was a meteorologist with the Navy. Yeah, fascinating, right? Unfortunately, Biff, you're older than that guy ever got to. He died, at cancer young, young-ish, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, but yeah, I would have loved to have met the guy, and I only know this from the obituary that I read. Right. So that's where we are, and we had a meeting with them, and then yesterday we went to these assistant living, but they're more hospice homes, and one of them's like they have 10 rooms, like 6 of them are doubles, 4 of them are single rooms, and in the half hour we were there, if a door was open and you walked past a room, you were walking past a corpse that hasn't been pronounced yet. It's very sad. The other place, one of the other places, was more assistant living, but I will preface this by saying we are in northern Nevada. It is very white, and there was a nice big living room with like 6, 7, recliners and 2 or 3 people in it, and the kitchen was huge and nice, and the other place was nice too. They make all the meals there. The people who work there, actually, everybody we met truly seems like they care, which I will say is great.
Yeah.
And the lady was like, oh no, we have 2 or 3 people here sitting most of the time. Sometimes it's Bible study. Sometimes we watch the news. I will let you guess what channel was on. And I said, she will be delivered and she will not come out of her room. So, it might be a week, it might be a month. Here is the shocking thing. All her organs are perfectly fine. The doctors do not understand how she's not in kidney failure.
Right.
Unfortunately, no. Before you ask, she is not an organ donor, sadly, because the doctors have no idea. Because when I say she lost 30 pounds in 2 months, it was not from jazzercise. She was not sweating to the oldies.
But to be fair, right? I mean, if she's going to go that route to, end of life, I'm not so sure how, at that point, how viable her organs are going to be.
No, because as of before you can move to one of those houses, you have to have a full X-ray and TB scan and all this stuff. So all her blood work and all her scans are like, she is completely healthy as far as her lungs, heart, kidneys, go. in her eyesight. Like
Yeah.
when we were a couple weeks ago when we were driving, she'll read a back of a truck from a half mile away.
Yeah.
Type thing. Her eyesight is perfect.
She wasn't spending all of her days on a fucking flip on a phone. Like she had no screens. She wasn't ruining her eyes like I have. But go on.
Well, and I did measure from where she sat in the recliner for 15 years to her TV. She was not sitting too close to the television to ruin her eyes, So she had that going for her, which is nice. But truly, the fact that I am an organ donor, come on, what's going to be left? I don't drink anymore, but I'm pretty sure my liver can't recover from the 90s. I'm pretty sure what Utica Club did to me over a 15-year period of time is irreversible. But yeah, I tell you, it's like, but then I will be honest, we're dealing with this girl at Chase who, just a sweetheart. And she comes to work every day with a machete bigger than hers because she's an itty bitty thing trying to cut through the red tape. And she's like, calls me like one day in almost a hush whisper. And she's like, you should probably, once you can, be easier to withdraw all the money, leave the bare minimum here, and move that to the account that's already in the trust versus trying to get him on the account. Once you get him on the account, then it becomes another 2-week process to get the account into the trust. Right. So she, in hush whispers, is like, do it this way. Right, because
it's the beginning of The Incredibles.
Yes, it is. Thank you. And it's funny because we're talking, and she mentions, she has a 3-year-old, blah, blah, blah. And of course, which opens a segue to me talking about Bluey. And we're having this conversation. I'm like, there's this one episode. I'm like, I say, yeah, I love it, but I hate it. And she's like, why do you hate it? I'm like, do you cry every third episode? And she starts laughing. I'm like, the episode that gets me in 2/3 of the way through the story, I just put my hand up like, what happens? And she's like, she goes, the one that gets me. And halfway through her story, she just stops. And my brother-in-law is looking at us like, what is going on here?
Crazy.
So I do. So the next day, so that was on Friday. We have to go back in 3-4 days later. We're waiting. She's in the back. She comes out to meet us. As we go to her office, I'm like, I tripped over this. And it was like a Bluey Snuggie. I'm like, somebody must have left this here. And, she was, but the same thing, I will say the Wells Fargo people came out to the car and were great, but ever since then, it's going to be 3 or 4 days. We are now 7 business days since she has gone in, since they came out to the car to sign things, and everything's not in the trust. And what people don't seem to understand is, yes, we have found out that this woman has phenomenal wealth. Right. She does not have access to her wealth. If she would, so her assisted living place she was at was about $9,000 a month. She gets about $6,000. Right. So there's a difference of $3,000 a month. If she was healthy, she'd be fine for 6 or 8 months with the one account that she has access to. She can't get into a bank, and if they won't let her, she can't do online banking. You know what I mean? It's like all of these things. So gosh forbid she lives more than a couple months. She won't be able to get her and it doesn't matter if you talk to the people from USAA and say, she's a vet. Her husband was career military. You keep saying, well, you're protecting your client's, interests. It's like your client. And some of these places like, Morgan Stanley, the place out of LA, they said, we've been trying to get a hold of her for a couple of years. We call, we have a call list. And if we don't hear from a client every 3 months, we call them, and we haven't heard from 2 years. It's like, you didn't think to call in a wellness check? You didn't, because she doesn't answer the phone unless she knows who's calling.
Yeah.
And her brother is the only person who talks to people. So unless you knew her brother, so her brother's only on half the accounts because I don't think she knew. So half her wealth. Half her wealth is CDs, so with USAA, she has 6-month CDs, 12 months, 24 and 36-month CDs that have been rolling over for 2 decades.
Oh my God.
I was yelling when I was doing some forensic accounting a few days ago, and I found a new account we didn't know about, retirement account. I'm like, she fucking retired 15 years. This woman, when her husband passed, could have spent the rest of her life on a cruise ship. And I don't mean going on a different cruise ship every week.
Yeah.
You know, they have those. Yeah, they have those tours, those worldwide tours where you can just. She could have lived her life in extreme comfort instead of an apartment that you can't get into because of the smell, with no water the last 4 months she lived there. Like there was no reason she was living. And so, and we reached out to look, I'm a pretty resourceful guy. So I spent a day on the phone with the Nevada Department of Aging and Disability saying, hey, isn't it discriminating on disability, saying that this bedridden woman has to come in to sign paperwork? Isn't that using her disability? Well, she's not technically labeled as disabled yet by the state. So, and I'm like, every fucking thing that I brought up to them, I'm like, well, now, if it was a fraud situation, if my brother-in-law had forged documents and I called and said, hey, this lady who's bedridden, I know this guy forged documents. Then they would act. Then they would get involved. But, you know, and they're like, well, we don't do this, but we have an advocacy wing. We're going to have them call you. Well, if in the assisted living places, she was getting slapped around a little bit. Right. If we showed up and there were bruises, there's people to call and say, hey, I think mama, you know, Mammy's being slapped around a little bit. They would act. But there's nothing to say this woman's living in squalor, has financial resources the three of us can't really imagine right now, and yet has zero access to it because of red tape. And literally there is no cavalry coming. And like I said, we extended our trip solely because we extended because she doesn't have anybody. We might extend again because of the red tape. She might not get moved the next couple of days. And we don't want her going into, even though she's somewhat lucid, somewhat losing it. We don't want to dump her in a new place and not know anybody, even if she doesn't leave the room. A familiar face should be in that room every day.
Right.
You know, and even if we drive over and we're there for a half hour, an hour, or if she wants us to stay there for 4 hours, you know, we can definitely do that. But we don't want to leave until that. And again, the guys from hospice are great. So she will have hospice care in that place, and those places are great. So somebody will check in on her every hour, but it's not the same as, none of the neighbors are making the drive from here to Reno to visit her. None of them visit her at assisted living. None of them visit her at the hospital the last 9 days. This is it. You know what I mean? And so between the paperwork, which again, it sounds morbid, but if we don't get some of these accounts, we have a funeral we have to pay for.
Right.
You know, also because of the trust, you know, he is now responsible. Luckily, because of the way her brother's saying, her will was rewritten to give some substantial donations to 4 different charities versus a percentage. Because if it was a percentage, then the state would kick in. And even as of 2 or 3 days ago, she's yelling at the lawyer here and at the lawyer in Boston saying, just give him the house. She doesn't understand fully.
Yeah.
She's like, it's my house. My brother gave it to me. Why can't I just give it to him? You know, and to sidebar, $250,000 to make that house livable back in. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's a nice 3-family. It's 100-plus-year-old house. The architecture inside is fascinating. It's like the work that was done unpermitted over the 100 years when this addition was put on and that addition was put on. And, you know, I think technically in the city of Lawrence charter, it's a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom that's now 3 floors, 9 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, you know, 3 of which don't work. So literally, it's one of those things where I saw a comedian many years ago. If you don't like somebody, I mean, if you really hate somebody, give that person a horse. You know, fucking expensive it is to take care of a horse.
Like or a boat, right?
You're right. You know, I guess Keith Moon used to gift Ringo Starr. Was it Ringo Starr or somebody expensive gifts that would show up? Well, he would pay for the down payment and the shipping. And then a month later, Ringo would get a $10,000 bill for the balance of whatever he thought Keith Moon had. And he did it on purpose, relentlessly. So that's the thing. It would be a disservice if he could do that. And here's the funny thing. The lawyer back home telling him, the $400 person, it's like, yeah, your hourly rate, which is about 1/6 of what she gets, is high. Like, to clean all the stuff there for her brother and to do all this stuff. It's like, I guess she's telling him, you can't bill every time you drive to the house for your travel time, but I can because people, it's like, okay, I know dude, it's just a nightmare. It's like, because he was nice and did a home check on this guy, obligated him for the last 6-7 months of his life to put on hold. And now here's the other thing. He has a business. He has a 4-person crew, in 3 trucks and clients who want to deal with. Right.
Yeah.
And so he's getting calls every day. And his workers are awesome and they're hardworking, but the people want to talk to him.
Yeah.
They want to talk to him. They just feel better looking out knowing that he's, overseeing the crew, type thing. But if she passes away, what are we going to do? Leave on Wednesday, she passes Friday, and then fly back out, So for everybody who's been asking what I've been doing, now you're up to speed.
Yeah.
It's horrifying, and all I can do is say, please get this. And I've had a couple friends repeat what the banks have said. It's like, well, you really should have taken care of this before. It's like, oh, before we knew her? Before we knew she was living in squalor in a house with no running water?
So let me ask you this. Have you set up your trust?
Oh yeah, no, we like, because we found out, and this is one of those little things that you don't know until you know. Yeah. My wife had done all this with her mom, power of attorney. Yeah. 2 months after her mom passed, there was an insurance policy that her mom lost the ability to speak the last 2 months of her life, and would speak in 1-2-word sentences, mostly in Korean. Right. And so she couldn't say, oh, by the way, I have this prudential policy that's my life insurance that will cover my funeral and all this stuff. Yeah. Make sure you. So when we find it going through her paperwork and stuff, my wife calls and they're like, oh, yeah, the power of attorney ends upon death. So the power of attorney is only good to the person passes, which is why you need to be a co-trustee on a trust, because now it took 6 weeks for the insurance company to tell my wife, yep, it is your policy. Yep, you're this person. Yep, we'll give you the money. So literally, so I knew, okay, great. Power of attorney is good till she dies. When she dies. So that's been my big role, is doing 5 hours manual labor. And I will also tell you, it's kind of, I'll say it. I'll be honest. We kind of went in with some hopes, and it's been one episode of Capone's Vault with Geraldo Rivera, like find a safe that's buried under stuff. And literally it was a shopping list, or for some reason she felt the need to keep Wendy's receipts from 2003. Does Pepsi still have that numbers on a cap promotion going? We found a bag of those. That's all we found.
We found new Coke.
We found like Capone Vault after we were on the lookout for guns. She was pretty sure there was a 45 around her sleeping area.
Okay.
Her husband had stacks and stacks of National Geographic and different gun magazines. And we found a bunch of his medals. He had some Navy sharpshooting award. Right. But there was a neighbor who had keys to the house when she went into assisted living that we're not 100% sure. I will just say a number of times has included himself on conversations, like when we had a realtor to come look at the house who didn't get the hint that, hey, we need to talk to her, until I said, could you excuse us, and just walked away from him, and waved the lady over and put my hand up to stop him.
Changed the locks?
Not now, because everything's gone. Whatever was there, it's one of those things. Good luck, lots of change jars. I will say also,
I guess you would probably encourage neighbors to take things. It's like, hey,
we put so much. When I say, like, in the back, he had a room. It was a 3-bedroom. Like, this was his room. This was her room. This was their bedroom. I'm talking winter coats that are like, you might as well just gut a bear and wear it. Like real, like, low end doomsday preppers. They had maybe a dozen coolers with doomsday prepare kits, but half-ass ones. Jugs of water and all over the place, but labeled the date, like tap water. This
Oh my God.
is your question. Did you find an old milk carton that was labeled tap water September 1993 on it? Yes. Yes, I did. But like
I'm going to stop you for just a moment to give the listeners a little bit of a break. But that kind of reminded me of a volunteer work I did a couple of weeks ago, where I think you may have this. Did I talk about this? I'm not sure about.
No.
You know how you leave food at your postal box, and like, do you have that in your area where they pick up your food and whatever? So I went to one of these food bank distribution sites.
Oh no! I thought you meant like gifts to the people during the holidays. No, we
talking like a Meals on Wheels thing.
Not Meals on Wheels. So, the postal, at least in our area, the postal service has this program where they'll leave you this thing saying, we're gonna pick up, free food for the community on this date.
Oh.
And the mail office collects it, and then what they do is they have these, charity organizations that gets all the food, and then they distribute to the community, right?
Like a food drive. Yeah,
which sounds lovely. It turns out that they use that for dumping grounds of old food, right? I mean, of course people do that crap, right? So I went to one of these things where our job was to first count the food, and as we go through it, we look at the expiration, and they said, anything before, this date, we're going to throw away. Right. So we had this, competition on who had the oldest food. And for a while I had March 2014, which was like, which was leading until somebody found September 2009. So people are, thinking, oh yeah, somebody will enjoy my 15-year-old food.
Oh my God. Oh, no, the same thing. It's like, there's been a couple times the school's done fruit drives, and I've been like, oh, I didn't know peas expired and like this soon. And it's like 2 months out. You know what I mean? It's like when my son, had a friend who used to stay with us a lot. He likes Chef Boyardee, like the raviolis that it came.
Right.
And nobody in our house eats that, and it's like, oh, Derek hasn't been by in a year. Yeah, these are almost expired. I can get rid of them, or I throw them out.
Yeah.
So now I will talk about the highlights. So I get to the house a few days ago, and I'm in the car. My brother-in-law goes to open the house, and I get out of the car very slowly because there's a deer maybe 15 yards away. And he's walking up from the other side to go in the back, and I'm like whispering. It's like, turn around. And the deer didn't run off. I guess deer just live in your yard. And we went to lunch one day, and the deer was in the backyard. And we came back a few hours later, and the deer was still there with 2 babies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just, it was nice. But the true highlight,
human babies.
I really weird. Yeah, it's like, maybe the dingo cut your babies.
You don't get those in your area because you're weird.
We do, but they're like,
they're more skittish.
They're skittish. Like we'll look out the back door, and on the behind the pool, like there's like 5 acres behind us. Yeah. You'll see them there, but if you open the back door, they'll go running off. Yeah. These are like, you got any smokes?
Right. Can I use your bathroom?
It's not working. It's not working.
We get a lot of raccoons, and those guys are not that skittish. So they gotta give you the stare. Now thank goodness the skunks are skittish because But
you don't want them to be skittish. You want them to walk away slowly.
Yeah, we just want them to be we're just leaving.
Now you're sure they're skunks and not a lecherous, womanizing cat who just
could be.
It speaks with a French accent.
Right.
So here's a real highlight. I don't know the last time I've gone to bed 9 o'clock every night. And got real sleep.
Yeah.
But as my brother-in-law and I go to bed, like the hotel we stay at, it's no frills. It's fine. Yeah. We come here to sleep and leave.
Right.
It's still not an expansive cable package, but we generally go to bed watching the Golden Girls, laughing our asses off.
As God intended.
Absolutely. And the other day, I was everything I could do not to call Joe in real time, but I did the next day. I do not recall the Jeopardy episode of the Golden Girls, and I don't know which came first because it was very similar to when Cliff Clavin was on Jeopardy.
Oh, right.
And it's like Harvard professor, MIT professor, postal carrier, Cliff Clavin. And the categories were domestic beer,
Yes.
Barroom chatter, SIP codes. And in this episode, I cannot remember the guy. I see his face, but he was in one episode of every sitcom ever in the 80s. And they're like,
David Leisure.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm
What was
looking
he
at
best
the-
known for?
Oh, Joey Suzu guy,
Joe
right?
Suzu, yeah.
That's who it is. I knew I was going to
But he
remember.
was also on the Golden Girls spinoff, Empty Nest.
Yeah. Empty Nest. I was going to say he was on Empty Nest. Yeah.
But, and again, if you're on his IMDb, one episode of every show in the 80s.
He was also the Hare Krishna in Airplane.
Yes, he was. Thank you. The one with the talking role. There were two, but he was the
Yes.
one that got punched and flipped.
Yep.
But yeah, Robert Stack was the one who punched him.
Yes.
What are you doing, Joe? Why? You know what that's going to do to my brain. So, and then it's like, and defending champ with a record $98,000, Rose, and so Rose comes out and Dorothy's like, how is she the champ? She's an idiot. And then the questions were like, cows, Saint Olaf stories, like all these things. And then Dorothy's upset. And then Alex Trebek says, Dorothy, this is a dream. And she goes, oh, okay, well, I want hard questions. and then she's mopping the floor with them. And then it's like the final Jeopardy question, who's buried in Grant's tomb? And Mr. Joe Souza just drew a stick figure for a guy. And his answer is, it's this guy. And then Rose said, Cary Grant. And Alex Trebek said, that's a correct answer. And then it went to Dorothy, and Dorothy's like, no, it's Ulysses S. Grant. Ulysses S. Grant is buried in Grant's tomb. I want a ruling. And they said, okay, well, the judge is here. The guy who created Jeopardy, Merv Griffin. And Merv Griffin comes out, points to the stick figure, and says, he drew a picture of Cary Grant. and the answer is Cary Grant. And then she came out of her dream state. But it was now at the same time, my highlight of the trip is also the downside, because those Golden Girl episodes play on Hallmark. And every commercial break, Hallmark has two commercials that run. They're Christmas in July, which they are pumping the fuck out of, and June. And then there's with something from Barcelona, a Hallmark movie about this woman who wrote this famous book about love in Barcelona, and she's there, and turns out that her best friend and she's in love with, and okay, those commercials are relentless and insufferable, but they run them over the tag.
Yes.
So
over the tag, or the
credits.
ending
tag. Oh no! So the credits are rolling
Right,
over
right,
the
right.
tag scene.
They shrunk down.
So you got the picture-in-picture,
the split screen kind of a thing, yeah.
and you can hear Rose telling a delightful, St. Olaf story as you're hearing the commercial at the same time.
Wow.
They're talking over each other.
Right.
Yeah, what a nightmare.
nice.
Yeah, so just to answer your question, which you didn't really ask, but the Golden Girls episode, Questions and Answers, Season 7, Episode 16, aired February 8th, 1992. The Cheers episode, What is Cliff Clavin, Season 8, Episode 14, aired January 18th, 1990. So 2 years later, there's a Jeopardy, the one. And then we won't even talk about the Simpsons episode where Marge goes on Jeopardy. And then, because she ended up in like negative numbers, she has to pay Jeopardy, and Alex comes over to collect.
Please tell me Alex Trebek did the voice.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Now, we won't even bring up the Mama's Family episode where they go on Family Feud with Richard Dawson. And we won't even touch upon...
And why won't we bring that up?
We won't touch upon the episode of Gimme a Break where Nell Carter goes on Wheel of Fortune and doesn't get the puzzle right because she goes off script when solving the puzzle. So yeah, we won't talk about those episodes.
And we will in a future sideshow, and I promise,
Not now.
we will do sitcoms of the 80s and 90s that did real life
That'd be a
sitcoms. No,
great sideshow.
I mean,
Sitcom episodes with game show tie-ins. Oh my God.
you know, you got your homework. But I will say, yeah. So this whole experience, I mean, it's interesting. I will say Carson City is beautiful. There's never any traffic. I guess Reno does have traffic. It is the biggest little city in America. It's funny because there's some low rent. There's like a Golden Nugget, maybe a quarter mile from us. That's a miniature version of the Golden Nuggets. So it looks like you walked through a time machine, and it's like low rent Vegas, 1958. No, I haven't. Like I said, I've had to cancel a bunch of shows. I had some shows, and those do not matter. This is real life. Those are just things. Everybody back there I'm dealing with, like, you know, Micah Trobis and Radigan and all the guys. I barely, like, there was one day where I was texting Wayne for like 5-10 minutes because I went out to the car to make some calls at the hospital, and I know my brother-in-law was coming down. So I'm like, oh, you know, I can catch up for 5 minutes, you know? But yeah, it's like between the being on the phone relentlessly and arguing with these people and endless paperwork, the actual cleaning of the house. The only nice part is the drives. I will shockingly say we found a decent Thai place. The Thai place here, Biff, was okay, but had the absolute best peanut sauce ever that they make there every day. Like it was the best. Then I found a better Thai place, and it's not LA type place, but it's pretty good. You know, I one day, and this probably, I don't know if either one of you dealt with this. I wanted a real good veggie burger, and I Googled, and they said the Burger Barn, I think it was called.
Okay.
The menu looked awesome, and I said to my brother-in-law, "It's like, let's go here." And we start driving, and it's right here, but we can't find it. And we loop, and it's like, we can't find it. And I'm in the parking lot, and I call, hello, this is Denny's. I'm like, I'm trying to get the Burger Barn. They're like, oh, yeah, we're a ghost kitchen. You have to order that online.
Yeah.
I didn't know what a ghost kitchen was.
Yep.
You know, but I went in, and they said, you're supposed to order this online and have it delivered by DoorDash or Uber Eats, but they have the stuff back there. They'll make it for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, so yes. So we've been going to the Burger Barn, you know, a couple times.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Actually, so, you know, what's kind of complete sidebar, but there's a ghost kitchen in, I want to say something like Echo Park. And apparently it's like they built it like kind of in a neighborhood. So apparently that's creating this huge issue with the neighbors because it's kind of like one of those mixed zone places. And the place is apparently just like lined up with these DoorDash cars. And like, it's like they're illegally parking and blah, blah, blah. So that's been the news over here. Those ghost kitchens are apparently a nightmare.
And I get it. It's like, you know, it's hey, I don't know if I would have gone into Denny's, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
But so you know, gentlemen, as always, thank you for indulging my rants. And honestly, I hope this serves as a PSA to somebody. You know, if just one look. If all the kids in the world could get together and think like the kid thinks never going to happen, but seriously, it's like because my brother-in-law and sister are way too nice and caring and help take care of this older guy, starting back in October, doing these regular check-ins with them. We're now on month 7, 8. This is his third trip out, my second trip, extended both trips. And now, honestly, we're supposed to fly back on Wednesday, and that's the decision we make. If like, oh my God, if it's just a week, because, you know, I mean, the cost of going back and coming here, not just the cost, but the man hours of doing it. Like to leave his house or to leave my house, it's at least a 15, 16-hour investment of time with a 3-hour time change, you know? So, you know, I might be back Wednesday. It might be another week. Every single day I get up thinking this is the day that Bank of America aren't going to be pieces of shit and realize we have to buy a casket. We have to, and I say,
Can't you rent one?
You know what? But every day, we found out that our plot is paid for. So, so that's nice. And the headstone's already taken care of, but now, and that's what we're doing today. So as soon as we end this podcast, it's going and talking to the funeral home and making those arrangements. And then tomorrow morning, we drive to Reno, Bank of America at 9, Wells Fargo brokerage guy at 11. And then we have to show the house at 3.
The house is ready to show?
No, it's going to be
Okay.
as is.
Okay.
We walked into Remax and we're going to get another personal look at it,
Okay.
first. It is the one thing that's in the trust. And because of her age, I think if it sells while she's still alive,
Yep.
the capital gains won't have to be paid.
Oh,
there's that
right,
one,
right, right.
65 plus one-time capital gains
Right.
exemption. So if that could happen, to do a quick sale would make sense.
Yep.
But we're talking, it would have to be record quick.
That's so horrible.
Type thing. But that's the thing. It's like, so when we walked in on Friday, it turns out I found the CPA because he came out my brother-in-law, he's found all the stuff that we needed. He found the tax return from 2019, which was great because it had the CPA's address on it. So we drove right over there. And we went through the whole, here's a POA, here's a trust thing. And 2 days later, they had printed us out her 2023, which allowed me to spend an entire night, line by line. Do we have this account? Do we have this account? Where does this money come from?
Yeah.
Where does this money go? Because that's the thing. Yeah, she has a lot of wealth, but upon death, she has a lot of bills. You know what I mean? And it's like, I think the Kohl's card we can let slide. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I'll give them her forwarding address. But the charities and stuff have to get, their stuff. And there's substantial money she's leaving to them.
Yeah.
So he has the responsibility to make sure he gets that. So anyways, get your shit in order. I know you have your stuff, Joe, but
Kind of.
kind of. Well, it's a lot easier now.
Haven't looked at it in 20 years, 15 years. So maybe I'll take a gander at that next time I look over there. I can see the binder with all the forms right in there.
Yeah.
So let's wrap it up because
Goodbye, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel like the death with dignity policy in Nevada right now, where they just push off a mountain. That's how we end in the podcast. Come on. Jacques, it's ironic that you don't believe in heaven because, man, you're going there. I don't know. Unfortunately, they won't let you in without the ticket. But you got to have that sort of faith in God or whatever it is. But you know what? Maybe your sister will vouch for you. We'll see. But anyways. So if we've learned anything today, it's that the Adult Swim catalog is available for viewing on adultswim.com. And maybe there'll be a future episode or sideshow of Carnival Personnel Podcast. Maybe with talking about game shows and sitcoms. Who knows? I'm looking at a list right now, and it's incomplete. They didn't have to give me a break episode on this webpage. So you know what? I'm going to have to write a strongly worded letter to this GeoCity site and get back to me. But in any event, Jacques, you are doing the what your brother-in-law might refer to as the Lord's work, and he as well. So we'll bid everyone a farewell. I guess I'm publishing this episode. Why not? Just throw it up there. I mean, again, it'll be like another bare bones. Ain't no music happening. Just gonna be intro and then me saying, "Don't forget."